I locked myself in the bathroom with a towel stuffed under the door to muffle the sound. My knees hit the cold tile. I clutched my stomach and screamed. Not words, just pain. The kind that claws through your ribs and makes you wish you could go back in time just 5 seconds. Just long enough to undo the choice that shattered everything. The house was so quiet now. No footsteps running down the hallway. No giggles behind closed doors. No toys to trip over or tiny socks in the laundry. My children were gone, and I was the one who let them go. Steve stood on the other side of the door, calm as ever. He did not yell. He never did. That would have made it easier to hate him. Instead, he knocked once and said, "They were never good for you anyway." I chose him. And the silence left behind still screams louder than I ever did. Before I continue, I want to say something important. Thank you to every one of you who has subscribed to this channel. Your support means more than you know. And to all my new viewers, and even those returning who have not yet subscribed, I see you. I feel your presence. I cannot wait for you to hit that subscribe button because that click is what fuels this channel and keeps these raw stories alive. Please engage in the comments below. Share your thoughts. Your voice matters here. Now, let me take you back to when I let my children go and did not realize I was letting myself go with them. My name is Teresa. I am 41 years old, born and raised in Tennessee. I have 2 kids, a daughter named Janelle who is 13 and a son, Mason, who just turned 9. They are bright, sensitive, and smarter than I ever gave them credit for. I divorced their father 3 years ago. He was decent but distant, always working, never really there. After the split, I had full custody. My kids were my world, even when life got hard. I worked double shifts at the diner. I missed birthdays. I burned out. But I never let them feel it. Then I met Steve. Steve was 45, ran his own HVAC business, and looked like the kind of man who had never been shaken. He had this quiet intensity that pulled me in. He listened, really listened. And for the first time in years, someone made me feel seen. He told me I was beautiful when I had no makeup on. He bought groceries without asking. He cooked dinner, tucked my kids in, and made it all look easy. I thought he was heaven sent. But then, small things started to change. Things I did not notice until they were already patterns. He started calling Janelle disrespectful when she asked too many questions. He said Mason was too soft. He never yelled, but his words were sharp, quiet razors that cut deep. He never said I was a bad mother. He just asked me if maybe I was doing too much. Would it not be easier if their dad helped out more? Maybe they need a change of environment. Why do they talk back to you like that? You deserve peace. And after months of fatigue, financial pressure, and guilt, I started believing him. I thought I was being practical. I told myself this was just temporary, just a few months while I got back on my feet. My ex was shocked but agreed to take them. The day they left, I told them, "This is not goodbye. It is just for now." Janelle did not say anything. She just hugged me too hard. Mason cried into my shirt. I held it together until the door closed. Then I shattered. Steve came up behind me, kissed my neck, and whispered, "Now we can really start our life." He kissed me like he just won something. And that is when it hit me. He did. At first, I told myself the silence meant rest. No more rushing between school drop-offs and late-night dinner shifts. No more yelling across the hallway or refereeing sibling arguments while trying to pay overdue bills. Just silence. Clean countertops. A man who brewed coffee and kissed my forehead every morning. But the peace Steve gave me came with a price. One I could not name yet, but I felt it every time I picked up the phone to call Janelle and put it right back down because Steve was watching. Always watching. Not with violence or threats, with that same calm, dead stare that made me question my own instincts. You look anxious again, he would say. You are always tense after you talk to them. You said you needed rest. This is rest. I began to believe I was the problem. The days blended into one another. I stopped checking the time. I stopped answering my sister's texts. She asked, "Why are you disappearing, Teresa?" I told her I was just tired. Steve took over the bills, the grocery runs, even handled my car note. At first, I felt grateful. Then I started to feel erased. I used to know who I was. A mom. A survivor. A woman who had done everything she could to keep her kids safe. But somewhere between his help and my exhaustion, I became just a shadow standing in his clean house. Every night, I sat at the dinner table with Steve and stared at the two empty seats across from us. He called it quiet. I called it grief. The guilt clawed its way up slowly. One night I snuck into the bathroom and texted Janelle, "I miss you. I love you." No reply. I texted again the next morning. Still nothing. That was not like her. Steve noticed the difference in me. That was his gift. He always knew just when to tighten the leash. I found my phone missing one afternoon. When I asked him, he shrugged and said, "You left it in the truck. You really need to be more careful." When it reappeared, my call history had been wiped. I started to doubt myself. Was I becoming paranoid? Delusional? Then, I found the voicemail. Steve was asleep. I went to the garage to grab something from his truck, and the Bluetooth was still synced. As soon as I turned the ignition, the message played. "Hey Teresa, it's Mark. I know you said this is temporary, but the kids are struggling. And to be honest, if they stay with me long enough, I might as well file for full custody. I think it's for the best at this point." My stomach flipped. My knees buckled. Full custody? The air in the garage felt too thick to breathe. I replayed the message again, just to make sure I heard it right. And I did. Steve was waiting when I came back inside. He had not been sleeping. He asked me why I looked so pale. I told him I just needed some air. He wrapped his arms around me, like a snake curling tighter, and said, "You need to stop worrying. This is the life you chose." That night, I lay awake with my eyes open, staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had just traded my kids for a prison with no bars. The next morning, I stood in the kitchen and looked at the fridge. There were no drawings, no report cards, no sticky fingerprints, just one clean surface, holding a single note Steve had left. "Groceries done. Peace preserved. You are welcome." I whispered to myself, "I think I made a mistake." From the hallway, Steve's voice cut through the air like a blade. "You sure did." The next morning, I stared at myself in the mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back. Pale, thin, eyes hollow, like someone had turned the lights off inside me. I had given up my children. I had given up my home, my voice, my sense of right and wrong. And the worst part, I had not fought. Not once. Steve did not hit me. He never yelled. But every part of me was bruised in places no one could see. That is how men like him win. But something had changed. After hearing that voicemail from my ex, full custody, the guilt stopped numbing me and started waking me up. I began testing limits. Quietly. Carefully. I reinstalled an old prepaid phone I had hidden in a sock drawer from years ago. I called Janelle after school. Her voice cracked when she heard mine. "Are you okay?" she asked. I wanted to say yes, but I told her the truth. I am not, but I will be. That same night, I left my phone face up on the counter, the one Steve had access to, and slipped out back with the other phone hidden in my jacket. I called my sister and told her everything. She cried. Then she told me, "You get one shot. Do not wait." I waited for the next window. 3 days later, Steve left for a supply run. I had 30 minutes. I had already packed the essentials, birth certificates, my kids' school info, my ID. The rest could burn for all I cared. As I zipped the duffel bag, I heard the front door creak. I froze. Steve was early. He stood in the doorway, holding a paper bag and staring at me. "What are you doing?" he asked. I had to lie. "Just organizing." His eyes dropped to the duffel bag on the couch. His voice dropped too. "You think you're just going to walk out? After everything I did for you?" I stayed silent. That made him angrier than yelling ever could. He stepped forward, and something in me snapped. I grabbed the bag, shoved past him, and said the words I had been too scared to say for months. "You do not get to own me." He tried to block the door. I kneed him in the shin and ran. I drove straight to my sister's house. My hands shook on the wheel, but my eyes were dry. I had no tears left, only purpose. That night, I waited outside a local park. I had arranged to meet my ex there to see the kids. When they got out of the car, my chest collapsed. Janelle looked older. Mason ran straight into my arms. I held them both and cried like a mother who had finally woken up. I looked my ex in the eye and said, "You can hate me. I deserve that. But I am taking them home." He said nothing, just nodded. Sometimes forgiveness sounds like silence. It has been 6 months. I am in therapy. My kids are back in school. I sleep with their drawings taped to the wall, and I never again take their voices for granted. Yes, I chose wrong. But now, I choose them, and I choose me. To everyone watching, if this story touched you, if it reminded you of something you survived or something you are still trying to escape, please like this video. Comment your thoughts below. Your voice might help someone else. Share this story. Someone might need it more than you know. And please subscribe. It powers this channel and helps bring more of these true survival stories to light. Thank you for listening. And remember, silence is not peace. And love should never cost you your children.